Good evening, Kettering, Ohio. Welcome to the regularly scheduled City of Kettering Planning Commission meeting of May the 19th, 2025. The Planning Commission is a volunteer, independent body appointed by council, whose mission is to hear all bodies involved and subsequently make a motion to approve, deny, continue, or recommend the application. All action by the commission can be appealed to the City Council. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Miami Valley Cable Council for televising and taping tonight's meeting for rebroadcast on Channel 6 and streaming live over the internet at mvcc.net. It will also be recorded and available for later viewing on mvcc.net. Since this meeting is both audio and videotape to form a complete record for a possible appeal to the City Council and/or the courts, it is important that anyone who wishes to address the commission will need to come to the lectern, speak into the microphone, give their name and address for the record. So I'd like to move on to introductions of the Planning Commission tonight. To my far left, Ken Lackey, Assistant Secretary. Next to him is Carol Fisher, our Secretary. Next to her is Connie Gall, our Recording Secretary. To my immediate right is Ray Waskey, Vice Chair. And to my far right is Don Rethman, Commissioner, and I am Troy Urbis, Chairman of the Kettering Planning Commission. So let's get to our, I'm sorry, I forgot the most important person, Ryan Holmesy, our city planner. Thank you for being here tonight, Ryan, and looking really good. All right, first item on the agenda tonight is approval of our minutes for May 5th, 2025. Any comments on the meeting minutes? If not, do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes as completed?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have read the minutes, found them to be complete and accurate. I move for their approval.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Gall, call the roll, please.
Mr. Waskey?
Yes.
Mr. Rethman?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Lackey?
Yes.
Mr. Urbis?
Yes. All right, let's move on to new business. Tonight we have a case before us, which is a public hearing. The case tonight is a conditional use approval for a multi-unit residential development at the northwest corner of the intersection of County Line and Research Boulevard. PC case -25-005, something we're excited and interested to hear about tonight. So, Mr. Holmesy, if you would give us your findings today, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening. The report that went out last week was fairly extensive because this is a large project, I believe the biggest residential development in the city in a number of decades, a multi-unit apartment complex. And there's a lot of moving parts, so I'll go item by item through the existing conditions, through the proposal, and give some recommendations. And then the applicant also will speak on the item tonight as well. So, the property in question is about a 28-acre property located at the northwest corner of the intersection of East-West Research Boulevard and North-South Research Boulevard. Today, it's an agricultural use. It's been farmed for a number of years, and parts of the property are vacant. The proposed use is a multi-unit residential development with up plus or minus 264 units. The existing zoning is business park or BP, and the existing pattern district is suburban business. The property is bound to the north by Spalding Road, to the east by North-South Research Boulevard, to the south by East-West Research Boulevard, and then to the west by the Sixth River Office Park, which is a part of Miami Valley Research Park. When I get into more of the items that deal with the design of the property, you'll notice that a lot of the development is focused on the eastern side of the property, and the main reason for that is a huge portion of the property is located in the FEMA designated floodway. That's the red and blue hatched area on the screen now, and a big chunk of the northern portion is located in the 100-year floodplain fringe. So they're contending with a piece of property that has some engineering challenges to develop. The surrounding land uses, it's kind of in the middle of Miami Valley Research Park. To the east is the Beaver Creek and Kettering Municipal Line. There's a vacant piece of property, and then the Center for Lifelong Learning. Kind of southeast of the site is the Wolpert offices and some residential uses along Shakertown Road. To the south is the Reynolds and Reynolds headquarters. And then to the west of Reynolds and Reynolds is kind of a general office and industrial building. And then, like I said earlier, to the west is the Sixth River Office Park, which has a variety of office uses operating in it today. Just to give people a feel for how the property looks today and how the surroundings look, this picture is taken kind of from the southeast corner of the property looking west. A couple items of note. There is an ODOT project to build I believe, a 14-foot wide multi-use path from the intersection of Research and County Line Road over to the first drive approach of the Sixth River Office Park. So if you look through the exhibits, you would have noticed that they had a pedestrian path on the plans that's not there today. That's a project that'll be undertaken over the next couple of years. And then you can see the Sixth River Office Park there. And another item of note on the south side of the property that creates some challenges is there's an ODOT swale and drainage easement that'll be retained in that area once the path goes in. So as the applicant has kind of determined where they could put street trees down there, that easement, contending with that easement has created some challenges, but we can work around it. This picture is taken on the site looking north. You can see the existing pond and the tree line and the farm field, and then this is looking north as well, kind of at close to the east-west research bridge looking north toward the wider part of the pond. This is taken kind of from the top of, I'm assuming, a dam that was built when that pond was first created. There's an earthen mound there, kind of looking northeast toward the intersection of Spalding and Research Boulevard. This picture is taken from the bridge that crosses Spalding looking southeast. You can see the low area of the site, that's a lot of which is in the floodway today. And then this is taken looking east down Spalding Road toward Research. And another item that was brought up a few times in the report, and you'll notice the plan that's proposed responded to this, is that the eastern side of the property is bounded by the Iron Horse Trail, which connects to the extensive regional off-street bike trail that kind of runs throughout the region. And because of that, they're proposing a series of pedestrian access points to both this path and the path that's proposed on the south side of the site. And then finally, there's just a picture looking southwest from Research over the farm field. I already mentioned earlier the property in question is zoned business park, and the portions of the surrounding properties that are in Kettering are all zoned business park as well. To the east, you have some, again, that's Beaver Creek. To the north, you have a Research Park PUD, kind of northeast, and then you have agricultural zoning directly to the east, and then a industrial PUD and some residential zoning to the southeast. And the proposed use is an allowable conditional use in the business park zoning district. And just, this was included in the report as well. As a part of the Planning Commission's review, the Planning Commission can't waive minimum standards, but they can recommend conditions that make standards a little bit stricter. Some examples are the dedication of land, the reservation of land, the creation of easements, increased setbacks, increased screening and landscaping requirements, development phasing, and standards pertaining to traffic, circulation, noise, lighting, protection of environmentally sensitive areas. And the Planning Commission can also require that a development agreement be entered into by the applicant. And we've suggested that as a way to kind of list the portions of the project that'll exceed the minimum standards, to include a development agreement to kind of put that into writing when the time comes. The proposal, again, it's mostly on the east side of the property. The residential units are spread between 9 3-story structures. There's also a clubhouse that's 2 stories tall. There's 264 units plus or minus, and then there's 423 vehicular parking spaces for 1.6 spaces per unit. And now I'll go through the components of the proposal. One thing I wanted to point out is this orientation is kind of angled, so the north side is on the right side of the screen. In terms of access, the main primary access point is proposed to be where there's an existing cut in the median along North-South Research Boulevard. That makes perfect sense. And they're also proposing a secondary limited right-in, right-out access point for standard vehicles, but there's also this access point. Well, the goal is to make a cut in that median so that emergency vehicles can get in and out of the development by both turning left into and out of the development. And the applicant's been working with our fire department to design that median cut to make that a limited access point. In terms of pedestrian access, they're proposing 3 access points onto the east side of the site into the Iron Horse Trail, and then 1 additional access point onto the proposed trail on the south side of the site just for pedestrians. The only recommendation staff has is to retain the proposed access point. And also, when I get to the landscaping, there's a few trees that we think could be moved a little bit to provide shade to those access points and to access them a little bit more. The buildings themselves, the placement of the buildings, the red outlines there are the apartment buildings. Again, they're all 3 stories. When it comes to setbacks, they either meet or exceed the minimum setback requirements for the suburban business pattern district. And then they're also proposing that clubhouse and amenity space with the clubhouse is outlined in orange and the amenity space where there's a pool, sand volleyball, and a couple other things that would be available for the residents to use. A real minor item, there's a couple retaining walls due to the grading they have to do on the site, not super tall, 2 to 3 feet tall on the south side, 3.5 feet tall on the north side there. The only item that we recommended is just provide the finished materials to staff for review and approval as a part of the building permit review process. Since they are contending with the floodplain, they have to raise part of the northern side of the site out of the floodplain so that the finished floor of those buildings can be above, at least 1 foot above the base flood elevation. There's also a floodplain requirement that we have in the city of Kettering where if you add fill to the floodplain to elevate a building out above the floodplain, you need to compensate for that fill by removing fill from elsewhere in the floodplain. So you'll notice on the site plan they have a compensation basin kind of in the northeast corner of the site. That's intended to provide that one-to-one compensation. They have to grade up a large portion of the northern side of the site and then also grade down to even out some of the kind of central part of the site. No major concerns there. Just wanted to kind of help visualize the development a little bit more. When it comes to stormwater, again, they have the compensation and water quality basin at the northeast corner, and all of the other stormwater control devices are proposed to be buried underneath the parking lot, and they provided some rough outlines on their plan, outlined in blue there. The landscaping and screening plan for the site is fairly extensive. For the streetscape, the minimum requirement of the zoning code is 62 canopy trees. That's 1 canopy tree for every 50 feet of frontage. They're proposing to have 74. And I mentioned earlier there's some challenges with that south side of the site. There's a note on the plan that until we have more detailed engineering drawings, it'll be hard to know where they could potentially put trees here, but they've agreed to plant the minimum, or more than what the minimum requirement is. We just don't know the exact locations quite yet. When it comes to the parking lot tree, the required parking lot trees, they're required to have 1 canopy or group A tree for every 3,000 square feet of parking lot area. We need a more updated calculation for the total area of the parking lot because the plans we have now didn't quite calculate the area correctly, but they're close. So once it's calculated correctly, they will have to add some more parking lot trees to meet or exceed the minimum requirement. The applicant has told us they're hesitant to lose any more parking by adding more peninsulas or islands to the parking lot, but they do have room within the existing proposed landscaping areas to add more trees to meet the minimum requirement. So we'll continue to work with them as they finalize that part of the plan. When it comes to the parking lot screening, along the right-of-way, parking lots are required to be screened by a minimum 2.5 foot tall hedge. Has to reach that height within 5 growing seasons. The proposed plantings they have either meet or exceed that requirement, kind of where the green outlines are there. And where the type A buffer yard is required, with the red outlines there, The requirement is to have a 4-foot tall hedge within 5 growing seasons. Some of the proposed plantings don't meet that requirement in those areas, but again, just swapping them out for a different shrub would allow them to bring this part of the project into compliance with the code. And this hedge here is also supposed to help screen the refuse area here from the street. So that's one thing to keep in mind. When it comes to the foundation plantings, the proposed shrub and perennial counts they're proposing far and above exceed the minimum requirements. They almost more than double them for most of the buildings. There's a few buildings where they don't quite meet the Group B tree requirement, but again, minor adjustments can bring that part of the plan into compliance. The only recommendations we have here is retain the proposed shrub and perennial plantings that are proposed, and then meet the Group B requirements elsewhere on this, for the other buildings on the site. Another area where they're proposing to exceed the minimum requirements is the site entryway trees. This is more of a requirement for Miami Valley Research Park rather than a specific Kettering requirement, but to go along with the other development patterns that we see in Research Park, we've asked them to include tree-lined entryways to the property. And the south side of the site meets that requirement. The east side of the site meets it for the most part, but we've recommended that they add the trees to the north side of that drive approach as well, and then retain the other existing trees that they're already proposing there. Another item that both staff and Miami Valley Research Park mentioned as being important is that compensation basin is because they have a tight site when they're working with the floodway. It's very deep. It gets about 16 feet deep out in the front yard there. So as a part of one of our earlier reviews, we asked that they provide some screening around that to help soften the look, which the plan that we got as a part of the application does show a pretty extensive number of trees and large shrubs around that. So our recommendation is just to screen the basin from the adjoining streets, and this is largely accomplished with the plan that we have today. The architecture is one of the main items that have some outstanding comments in the plan. In our review, the shapes of the buildings are fine. We don't have any major comments about the shapes. They designed them in a way that has a more commercial or industrial appearance with flat roofs and tall parapets and horizontal aluminum railings, extra large windows with black aluminum window frames and black aluminum canopies. So the biggest item that we still have comments on deal with the finished materials. The green outlines there are the proposed brick locations, and then again, these are the aluminum awnings I mentioned earlier. They're proposing a rooftop patio that would have some overlooks over that pond. And then other than the windows, the rest of the facade material for the most part is different styles of fiber cement. And just to go over one of the proposed, this is one of the 24 unit buildings. The front and rear elevations will all look somewhat similar to this. Again, some brick accents around the entranceways. There's the aluminum railings that are proposed. The stairwells are proposed to be open rather than enclosed, which was an item that there were some comments about that design feature. And then, again, other than the windows, the rest of the facade are different types of fiber cement. And in the report, this code standard was referenced a fair amount. When the zoning code was rewritten in 2015, one of the things that we did was add an allowance where you could build high-density residential developments in non-residential districts. Initially, they weren't permitted in the business park district, but in 2020 and 2021, we modified our comprehensive plan and modified the code to allow these sort of uses to be built in our business park areas to help add housing, number one, and then number two, to create that mixed use setup that a lot of people would prefer today versus purely Euclidean zoning. And as a part of that, there's a standard in the zoning code, which is on the screen now, dealing with architecture for these projects that are built within non-residential districts, and that's that the architectural style, colors, and materials shall be similar in character to the predominant architecture of nearby structures in the same pattern district, and in conformance with the current standards of Chapter 1149. Now, all the surrounding properties are, at least that fall within Kettering, are in Miami Valley Research Park. So you have Reynolds and Reynolds, you have Sylvita, you have Resonetics, and then this is the building, I call this the 1900 Founders Building. I don't know if it has an official name. Combination of composite panel, tilt-up concrete, a lot of glass, brick, also rain screen, which is what they did on Life Connection, and also on the STEM school that's under construction now. So based on that review, some of the recommendations that came out of our review is that the amount of fiber cement be reduced to no more than 30% of the finished materials on the facades of the building. Enclose the stairwells, and I put an asterisk at the end of that one, and I'll explain that in a second. And also retain the use of aluminum window frames, awnings, and handrails, and retain the large windows. In terms of enclosing the stairwells, since I am not an architect, we're awaiting more information on that item. We don't know what will be proposed to help address some concerns that staff has about the open stairwells. There might be more than, it might not necessarily have to be enclosed and air and conditioned, but we're waiting for a little bit more information on what can possibly be done with that item. And finally, the site lighting. Since this is in the business park, we've asked that the fixtures that are used be more of a commercial character, and the parking lot luminaires meet that requirement. Some of the porch design, some of the designs for the porch lights don't meet that requirement. So the only comments that staff has is, and this is also a similar comment from the Research Park review of this project, is that use a more modern fixture for the porch and balcony lights. And then the light poles are proposed to be made out of composite fiberglass material, which I did some research on that. Normally we're used to seeing aluminum, so we're asking for a little bit more information on the composite poles and explore potentially using a different material like aluminum. Based on the research I did, these don't last as long. They can last about 15 to 20 years, maybe more, versus aluminum poles, which can last a lot longer. They don't usually fade or have that chalking appearance that composite poles can get as they age. So now I'll get to the actual conditional use, the general conditional use standards, and then that will conclude my presentation. Again, the entire property is zoned business park. The proposed use is an allowable conditional use in that zoning district, and the Planning Commission can make requirements more restricted than the base minimums, but they cannot waive any of the requirements that we have. Multi-unit developments do have some use-specific standards in section 1137.02.2 of the Kettering zoning code. The first, if you're building one of these developments in the business park district, the lots need to be at least 10 acres in size and contain a minimum of 200 dwelling units. That requirement is exceeded. And then the next section deals with just the general conditional use standards, which I will get into momentarily. The other use-specific standards are that these multi-unit residential developments in non-residential zoning districts need to have common areas that are readily accessible and usable by the residents and visitors of the development. This requirement is exceeded by the proposed development. And the last one is that architectural item that, again, the shapes of the buildings comply with this standard, but the amount of, there's a couple other items about the open stairwells and the use of fiber cement that staff would like to see some other proposals on to meet this requirement. And now the general conditional use standards. The first standard is that, and these are found in section 1153.08.8 of the Kettering zoning code. Standard A, the proposed conditional use shall comply with the applicable regulations of the zoning code. The proposed development does not fully comply with everything as discussed in the report in this presentation, but the plan can be brought into compliance with some changes. Letter B, the proposed conditional use shall conform to the character of the neighborhood within the same zoning district in which it is located and shall have no more adverse effects on the health, safety, or comfort of persons living or working in the neighborhood, or shall be no more injurious to property or improvements in the neighborhood than would any other use permitted by right within the same zoning district. As I've mentioned before, the design of the proposed use would not conform to the character of the neighborhood. And again, this is largely due to the fiber cement siding use on the buildings. The proposed use itself will not have more adverse effects on the health, safety, or comfort of persons living or working in the neighborhood, and it will not be any more injurious to property or improvements in the neighborhood than would be any other use permitted by right within the same zoning district. So this standard is partially satisfied. Letter C, adequate utilities shall be provided. They're working with Montgomery County Environmental Services. There's no concerns about not having adequate water or sewer capacity, so this standard is likely satisfied. Letter D, adequate measures shall be taken to provide ingress and egress so designed as to prevent traffic hazards and to prevent traffic congestion on public roads. Kettering's engineering department has been involved in the early reviews of this project and has stated that the surrounding roadway network can support the additional traffic from the development, so that this requirement is satisfied. Standard E, the proposed use shall not be noxious or offensive by reason of vibration, noise, odor, dust, smoke, or gas. Unless a resident is engaging in a very illegal business, there's no concern that this use would violate any of these standards, so this requirement is satisfied. On the off chance something does come up that violates this standard, it would be addressed as a violation of both the zoning code and likely the lease agreement of the resident. Letter F, the proposed use shall not injure the use and enjoyment of the property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes already permitted, nor substantially diminish or impair property values within the neighborhood. The use itself will have no such negative impacts, so this requirement is satisfied. Letter G, the proposed use shall not impede the orderly development and improvement of surrounding property for uses permitted within the zoning district. As stated in the report, if the proposed development, including the building design, is approved as submitted, the extensive use of fiber cement would open the door for similarly designed residential developments, which would diminish the orderly development and redevelopment of land within the research park, particularly future residential developments within the area. Letter H, the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the proposed use shall not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare. No such negative impacts will occur due to the proposed use. So this requirement is satisfied. And finally, letter I, the public interest and welfare supporting the proposed use shall be sufficient to outweigh the individual interests that are adversely affected by the establishment of the proposed use. And the proposed use has no such adverse effects that must be outweighed. So that requirement is satisfied. Staff does have a recommendation, but before I get to that, I wanted to ask if there are any questions, and I know that the applicant would like to speak to the Planning Commission as well. But before we invite them up to the podium, are there any questions?
All right, anybody from the
I have
commission
none.
have questions?
Not right now. None right now.
Yep.
I do have a couple, sorry, I'm not gonna get off that easy, Mr. Holmesy. On the two issues I think were prominent to me as I read through this and you explained today, the usage of the hardy board, you had a percentage, is there a certain percentage goal that you're looking for that meets the standard, or is there some movement there? I'm curious.
Well, let me go to the actual elevation real quick and explain where the 30% number came from. If you look at the elevation here, they're proposing these kind of, they're white on the renderings, and it kind of almost looks like a tilt-up concrete, but it's panelized fiber cement. We measured how big those were relative to the rest of the facade, and that was about 30%. So are you asking if it can be a little bit higher than that?
Are you saying, what's the goal we're trying to shoot for here, less than that, or?
The goal is 30%, but if someone comes in with a proposal that's like 35, as long as it's designed in a way that is consistent with Research Park, we would bring that back to the planning commission for a discussion, but we would probably be okay with that.
Okay.
There's
all right.
not a hard and fast number, it just needs to be less than what it is, and not even close to a majority of the finished materials.
Okay, gotcha. Other question I had, you talked about screening around the stormwater basin. You're looking for more of a landscaping type of screening. The one concern or question I had is, the proximity of that location and vehicle speed and stuff. Is there any concern about vehicles getting up into there? I mean, I've heard that before. Is any thoughts on that you had, or is that under consideration or
Well,
not relevant?
it's a dry basin.
Yeah.
Okay, so it'll
but-
be dry.
Detention, not retention.
But that's always a potential concern.
Yeah.
The proposed location, we do have some setback requirements in our zoning code if you're building a basin in a front yard area, but this proposed location meets those standards. The planting of the trees, as long as they are able to grow and get mature, would provide some level of a buffer once they get mature to stop a vehicle from going in there, but there's nothing in the code that requires them to do anything more in terms of vehicular, like bollards or anything like that.
Well, if it's mostly going to be dry, and there's events you can't control that, I feel more comfortable about that then. And then I'm curious on the open stairwell discussion. Is that a code requirement, or is that, I'm kind of curious how that's going to play out here.
It's not a code requirement. It's not a strict code requirement. It can be made a requirement through the conditional use process based on the architectural design of the building. But that came about from both planning staff members discussing the project and upper management discussing the project. The reason that I put the asterisks on the presentation tonight is that, number one, none of us are architects. We don't know what the actual options are for dealing with that. And number two, actually enclosing and conditioning those spaces would require potentially some pretty substantial changes to the site plan. Because I believe it'd have to add about 10 feet total to at least those areas of the building, which I think there's room, but it might be kind of tight. So we just want to see what they can propose, what comes in as the options. But it came about based on upper management discussion and planning and development discussion as well.
Okay, I appreciate that. Any other comments before we go? All right, obviously, it looks like the applicant is here, so if you would like to come to the lectern, please state your name and your residency, and love to hear your thoughts.
Sure. Ryan, thank you for your comments. Pete LaRose, Vision Companies, 2935 Kenny Road, Columbus, Ohio, 43221. Good evening, members of the Kettering Planning Commission, city leaders, and value community members. I'm Pete LaRose of Vision Companies, a Columbus-based developer with a 30-year track record of delivering over $1.2 billion in transformative projects across the state of Ohio. We're excited to be here this evening to unveil VC Flats, a 264-unit multifamily community adjacent to the Miami Valley Research Park, a development designed to address critical housing demands and catalyze economic growth in Kettering. Briefly, I'd like to recognize our team here this evening. Scott Morgan, Director of Entitlements with Vision Companies, Ryan Young, our planner with Pod Design, and more importantly, a Kettering native. And last but not least, Jeff Martin is joining us on behalf of Industrial Commercial Properties. Collectively, we've spent approximately 5 years working towards solutions of how to develop this environmentally restrictive site. The Southwest Ohio region is experiencing a housing shortage driven by robust job growth and economic momentum. And with the Miami Valley Research Park employing over 4,000 professionals and poised for further expansion, there's an urgent need for high-quality, accessible housing to attract and retain top talent. VC Flats will offer sophisticated, amenity-rich residences, creating a seamless live-work environment that elevates Kettering's appeal as a destination to a broad spectrum of residents. Highlighted by the interconnected Iron Horse Trail system throughout the research park, and community amenities such as pickleball courts, a resort-style pool and lounge area, and a certified CrossFit gym, VC Flats will immediately enhance Kettering's appeal. Further, this project will bring substantial economic benefits to Kettering and the research park by expanding the tax base, generating construction and permanent jobs, and attracting new residents. It will stimulate local commerce and support nearby businesses. Mixed-use communities like the Research Park will thrive by integrating residential and professional spaces, promoting wellness, creating community cohesion, fostering innovation, enhancing marketability, and ensuring long-term economic vitality. Vision's entry into the research park will serve as a development model for the entire region. For the past 5 years, Vision Companies has worked hand in hand with the City of Kettering and Industrial Commercial Properties, a key stakeholder in the research park. Through collaborative planning, we've aligned this development with Kettering's vision for sustainable growth, incorporating thoughtful design and environmental stewardship. This partnership has been fundamental in crafting a project that honors community values while delivering exceptional quality. We are deeply grateful to the Kettering community, city officials, Industrial Commercial Properties for their unwavering support and collaboration. Vision Companies is thrilled about the opportunity to contribute to Kettering's dynamic future, and we eagerly await your insights and look forward to advancing this exciting project together. With that, I'd like to introduce Ryan Young with POD, who will briefly describe the rest of the project.
Thanks, Pete. Ryan Young, 100 Northwoods Boulevard, Columbus, Ohio. First I'll kind of start off on a personal note. Like Pete had mentioned, born and raised in Kettering. Kettering is home for over 25 years for me. So being able to provide, a high-quality apartment development like this in the city is a great honor. So look forward to hearing your feedback and working with the city to make this a reality. I had a 3-hour presentation ready to go, but Ryan did such a great job. He kind of stole my thunder, so I'll keep it kind of brief and short.
Let me know if you want me to go to a different page of the presentation.
Yeah, I think we're good here.
Okay.
So he got into a lot of the details, so we're here to answer any questions you may have based off his thorough report or any of the more detailed questions. I'll just kind of give a high-level overview of kind of how we arrived at to what you see here today. Like Pete had mentioned, we've been at this for 5 years. I can't even count the number of site plan iterations that we've been through and some of the challenges that we've worked through. But like Ryan had mentioned, the site's roughly about 28 acres, of which about 12 of that is actually developable given some of the site constraints with the floodway and the floodplain. And then additionally, some of the easements associated with the site as far as the ODOT easements on the south and the eastern portion of our sites. Some of those constraints are things that we actually see as benefits and assets, not only to us as a resident, but also to the entire kind of community and neighborhood itself. Particularly 2 things we really wanted to kind of pay attention to and kind of embrace within our site plan is the Little Beaver Creek to the west portion of our site, the Iron Horse Trail that runs just north of our site. Obviously, it runs along our entire eastern portion of our site, and then the future planned trail along the south portion of our site. We see those as huge assets to our site, not only for the pedestrians, but the larger business park and the larger kind of regional community itself. So as you'll see on our site, we really wanted to kind of embrace those features. So we started off kind of by wanting to create kind of an attractive pedestrian streetscape that embraces that Iron Horse Trail. So what we did is we kind of lined our various buildings, which range anywhere from a 12-unit all the way up to 36 units. We really kind of wanted to push those up against the streetscapes to kind of embrace that trail by providing, like Ryan had mentioned, 4 pedestrian connections. We'll have enhanced landscaping at those entries. We have elements within the architecture itself to kind of bring the scale of those buildings down and kind of create a really nice pedestrian experience there. The second feature that we really want to take advantage of is the natural features associated with the site, particularly on the western side of the site, and that being the Little Beaver Creek and the pond there. So we located the remaining of our buildings that really wanted to kind of maximize views of that space. So you'll see on kind of the southwest portion of our site, we have a 24-unit building and a 36-unit building that overlook this space and is kind of have the front and center. Those are really prime units for us. They'll have some great views out into that natural amenity space. And then kind of the central kind of hub of our community itself, kind of located at the very center portion of north-south Research Boulevard is our boulevard at entry. This is one where we're going to have a ton of landscaping. We'll have a boulevarded tree row. We'll have our nice landscape entry signage. That all kind of leads you up to this clubhouse, and that's kind of the highlight of our entire development here. The clubhouse is located in a way to, one, provide views out into that naturalized area as you come up that drive. But there's also some perspectives here that kind of locate and kind of show you what that clubhouse looks like as you come up into that drive. The clubhouse itself was designed specifically for this site. It's an expensive clubhouse. It's double-story site. It's a double-story clubhouse. One, to kind of create a really nice, attractive entry experience, and then two, to allow for a rooftop feature that will overlook that pond space there. Out on the back of the clubhouse, like Pete had mentioned, that's kind of our resort style amenity package. It's going to have things like our resort style pool, that'll have grills, that'll have outdoor fire features, that'll have, kind of these soft lounge seating areas, and again, that rooftop deck space, and some additional sports courts, be it volleyball, pickleball, and then the CrossFit gym associated with this. The one thing that's not on this plan that we've kind of been considering this entire time is kind of, how do we connect and provide some additional amenities for the entire research park here? And so while it's not shown on the plan, because we're still kind of in conversations on what that actually will look like, is there's likely going to be, in the future, some kind of pedestrian trail network that kind of, interacts and works with the entire research park. And so we've set our site up in a way to where our amenity space and all that kind of provides future connections to those planned amenities there. So I think that's all I have. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them, and we can do our best to answer. Thank you.
Do have one question for
Sure.
you. With the number of units, or is it a phased approach, or is it the plan to build all and open up?
Yeah, all one phase.
Okay, okay, good.
Is there a target audience for the residents? Is this is not a senior apartment complex? It's not a lower income complex? It is a...
No, it's market rate plus, but it's meant to attract, broad spectrum of potential renters.
Okay.
Young professionals to empty nesters.
Has there been a analysis on the number of children that may be living in this complex and the effect on the schools, and or the schools have been involved in this process at all?
Ryan, I would ask you, I'm not sure what your conversations have been with the schools.
I have not personally been involved in those conversations, but that's one of those items that's really hard to guess. It's really hard to estimate.
I would think the developers would have some sort of idea.
Well, I mean, I
Done
can
these complexes before.
typically anywhere between 5 to 7% of the units will derive a student into the school district.
5 to 7% of the
5
units.
to 7% of the units.
Okay. So a relatively small number.
Relatively small.
What are the unit sizes and percentage of mix in terms of 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 10 bedroom, efficiencies, whatever? I guess just curious to understand what the mix is.
I'm Scott Morgan with Vision Companies, 2935 Kenny Road, Columbus, Ohio, 43221. We have 1-bedroom units that range around, call it 719 square feet, 2 bedrooms up to 1,100 square feet, and we have a small percentage of, call it our efficiency unit, which I believe, I don't have the matrix with me, but somewhere around 450 square feet.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
But typically our ratio is going to be 54% twos, 48 or 46 ones and efficiencies. I just don't have those exact numbers, but that's typically our formula.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions for the applicant? Any thoughts or commentary on the stairwell concern that Mr. Holmesy brought up to you guys, or like to share with us here?
We are prepared to share something with Ryan, probably not here this evening, but here, actually just got it hot off the presses from my architect, so
Okay,
I would say he'll be seeing something tomorrow for sure.
okay, great,
Actually, it'll be in your inbox tonight probably, so.
All right, I'll see you tonight then.
fair enough. Just wanted to see if there's anything we need to discuss tonight.
Yep.
All right, we think, I personally think it's a wonderful project, so
Oh, thank you.
how we can help move this along for you.
We're very excited to get started for sure.
Great. Any other questions for the applicant?
I have none.
All right, thank you. This is a public hearing, so if there's anyone in the audience that would like to participate, please come to lectern now, state your name and address, and love to hear your thoughts. And,
There you go.
Mr. Harden?
Hi, Jeff Martin with
Is it Martin?
Martin.
Okay, thank
Yes. Industrial Commercial Properties, property owner currently. As Pete had alluded to, address.
Yeah.
6110 Parkland Boulevard, and that's Mayfield Heights outside of Cleveland, Ohio, 44124. As Pete had alluded to, this has been a partnership from day one with the city. Goes back to conversations with Mark and Amy a few years back, having the vision to figure out what to do with this, relatively unused property, kind of right in the heart of the research park. And I, can attest to the hard work and vision of, the leadership of the community to help, identify a need. With so many jobs, in an area that had become a little bit stale over time, the research park was desperate to try and, infuse some energy and bring new life. And, what better use than having residents, new residential product right there, at the doorstep for all these businesses. So I think it was kind of an adapt or die, thought process that both ICP and the city of Kettering undertook together. We were able to change the zoning about 5 years ago. We got the tax abatement piece put together to help attract other residential development groups. So industrial commercial properties, by namesake, we don't do a lot of residential projects ourselves. So we've partnered with Vision Communities on other assets that we own, and just think they're a first-rate company who's going to build a beautiful product that the community can be proud of long-term. So we were excited when they expressed interest in the site, and we've been working, kind of hand in glove, collaboratively with the community and Vision over the last, really probably 3 years to find the right product and pull this together. So it's exciting to see the project get to this stage, and just advocating on behalf of the project. If there are any questions for me, happy to entertain those tonight as well.
Okay,
Thanks for your time.
thank you. Mr. LaRose, do have one question for you, if you would, please. Maybe think about this. When you look at this type of development, do you can maintain ownership of this? Are you looking to transfer, or what's kind of your company approach to that?
We do. We're vertically integrated, so we develop, we build, we manage, we hold.
Okay.
Market conditions will determine how long we hold for, if we have to sell at some point, but our intention is to always hold as long as possible. We have a very large property management company that we're proud of, that gets awards, that, we retain all of our employees for a very long time. So company-wide, fully integrated, intend to hold as long as we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other questions before we go to staff recommendation? All right, Mr. Holmes, it looks like it's back to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good discussion. There's a couple items that we want a little bit more information on before we're comfortable giving a recommendation to either approve or deny. So for that, and it sounds like we'll be getting some information tonight. So for that reason, the staff recommendation is that the item be continued until the next regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting, which is June 2nd at 7 p.m. in council chambers at 3600 Shore Road. And again, I mentioned earlier that the general idea is to have the next staff report will include some type of development agreement or design agreement that deals with some of those items where they're exceeding the minimum standards, to make sure that they actually come to fruition with the project, assuming it gets approved. So the goal is by that meeting to have some more hammered down details that we can bring forward to you.
All right, any questions on the staff recommendation?
No, I'm fine.
No?
All right, I think I would probably agree, so if I would have a motion from the commission on continuing this case, may I have such a motion?
Yeah, I'll put a motion together.
We have to close the public hearing first.
No.
No, we'll leave it
I'm
open.
going to leave it open.
Yeah, Continuation.
Right. Yes, in the, for the multi-unit residential development to the northwest corner of the intersection of County Line Road and Research Park Boulevard, I move that we continue this case until the next regularly scheduled meeting and leaving the public hearing open. That concludes my motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Gall, call the roll, please.
Yes.
Mr. Ruthven?
Yes.
Mr. Woski?
Yes.
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes.
Mr. Lackey?
Yes.
And Mr. Urbis?
Yes. All right, motion carried. So, gentlemen, we thank you for your presentation tonight, and Mr. Holmesy, thanks to you. We would love to see you be able to work on this here the next couple of weeks and come back before us on June 2nd and keep the exciting momentum built around this project. Kettering is in dire need of an opportunity like this, and I think that this could be a really good fit for us here. So I would encourage you all to let's get this worked out and come back to us and see if we can go from there. All right. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to next item of business, audience participation. Thank you, gentlemen. Seeing there's none, we will move on to that. Other business, signing of plats. Mr. Holmesy, anything?
We have none this evening.
All right. Any communication reports?
The only one project that I didn't mention at the last meeting that I should have given a quick update on, if you've gone to Research Park recently, you'll see the STEM school is well under construction out of the ground, and we're excited to see that project finish. They're moving really, really fast. And another item I brought up at the last meeting, I haven't seen it myself yet, but apparently the old former Pepitos building has been demolished officially. I haven't seen it yet, but and that concludes my updates. I don't really have anything else right now. We're still working on the comp plan. That's going along really well. We're still working on zoning code amendments like we always are. That seems to always kind of fall to the back burner when we have so many projects coming in. But luckily the projects are exciting. So that's all I have.
All right. I know Mr. Ruthven and I attended the comprehensive plan meeting. Looks like they got some good areas identified, and looking forward to seeing what we can come up with moving forward there. So appreciate your participation there. All right. Any other comments from the Planning Commission tonight?
No.
No? All right. With that being said, I will call the Kettering Planning Commission meeting of May 19th, 2025 at 7:52 over until our next scheduled meeting. We'll see you then. Thank you.